Hi guys, I hope you're doing really well. My name is Sarah and welcome to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies old and new. Seeing as how we are heading into a brand new month, how is it June already? It is time for another monthly recap, looking back at everything that I watched in the month of May, from TV shows to movies. These episodes before, I have previously had the format of breaking it down into TV shows first, then films, but in the film section just going chronologically through everything that I watched on, or what I logged on Letterboxd. But there was a suggestion, nay, a demand on my last monthly recap to put it into horror and non-horror sections. Now, I do think that that is actually quite a good idea, so I'm happy to give that a try. So for this episode, I will do TV shows, and then I will break movies down into the horror and non-horror. Now, there was a demand that the horror was the first thing in the episode, and while I do think it is a really good idea, I also don't like being told what to do. So as my own little act of rebellion, I'm actually going to put horror at the end of the episode, so we will go TV, non-horror, horror. But hold your horses. If horror is what you are here for, do not worry, because there are only about 3 to 4 non-horror films to cover, so it won't take long before we actually get to the horror section. Okay, let's just get going and kick off with the TV shows that I watched in the month of May. Now, I have actually had to make myself a little list. I have actually been watching more TV than I usually do. If you have seen these episodes before, you'll know that I don't tend to watch a huge amount of TV. I tend to watch more films. And if I am watching TV, I generally just have the same shows on a loop and just watch them in the background if I have a little bit of time to spare, if I'm editing, just like a comfort watch. And that's not very exciting to talk about here. But this month, I have actually been watching quite a few TV shows. So, first up, I am, of course, continuing with my watch of The X-Files. I have just come to the end of season 4. I have the finale to watch tonight. Still loving it. Still so glad that I'm able to try and make my way through the entirety of the material. But I did have a little thought last night, and that I am able to just binge watch all of these. And if I really do want to know what's going on, I could just have a sneaky little Google. However, back in the day, when it was a season a year and an episode a week, I realised that after having invested 4 years of your life in the show, you are still no further along in knowing what the hell is going on than you were at the end of season 1. Now look, I am still loving it and I am happy to plod along. That is not a problem. But I just feel like it's asking a lot of people to dedicate your time and never really give them that much more information. The episode I watched last night was Fox was having flashbacks to his childhood and to do with his sister Samantha being abducted. And it was like, oh, he needs to keep getting these memories. He needs to know more. And I'm just sat there going, yeah, we know that already. Like we know that this is his memories. We know that this is what happened. But anyway, also coming to the end of the new season of Taskmaster, really enjoying that one. I'm still hoping that my boy Steve Pemberton will win, but I don't think he's going to. I think it's going to be, I can't remember his name, but he's wearing the yellow Freddie Mercury jacket. I think he's going to win because he's actually just nailing it. But, you know, we still support Steve Pemberton here. Okay, then it's a rewatch of a period drama, Downton Abbey. I did watch this when it was originally released, and if you saw my recap of a couple of months ago, I did watch a Downton Abbey film. I think it was called New Era, and I just thought, I kind of want to revisit that. I love a period drama, love a period drama. Excuse me. And so I thought I really want to revisit that. So I think I'm in season 4 or 5? I actually have no idea because I don't sit and watch an episode. I sit and watch 10 minutes here, half an hour there, a whole episode, 2 episodes. I just watch what I can when I can. So I don't actually know where I am. I think I'm in season 5. Anyway, I'm having a good time with it. The quality is dropping off. The first 2 seasons are the strongest and 3 is interesting. But 4 and 5 are really dropping off and it's more about Lady Mary's love life and I don't know, but I'm still sticking with it. Season 2 is a highlight. That's when they explore World War I and it's such a wealth of material and they cover the whole, well, I think they're coming halfway through the war, but they do cover to the end of it. And that is a really, really strong episode in terms of storyline, in terms of just pulling on your heartstrings, but enjoying that rewatch. Also, sticking with rewatches, I am rewatching The Queen's Gambit, which I watched originally in 2022. Absolutely adored it. I mean, who doesn't love Anya Taylor-Joy? But my mini-me really wanted to watch it, and we didn't have a thing that we were watching at the moment, so I'm revisiting it, and it's got so much rewatchability to it. It's so fun going back and seeing it from the beginning and then knowing how it plays out. It's just such a wonderful show. And again, another period drama, but the costumes and the interiors, the props, the cars, everything, the soundtrack, it's just, oh, it's gorgeous. And Anya Taylor-Joy again delivering such a wonderful performance. So I'm really enjoying watching that with my mini-me and seeing them enjoy it as well. Okay, and again, sticking with period dramas, because I am a walking, talking cliche apparently, I have watched the first part of season 3 of Bridgerton. Now, I watched this back in the day when it first came out because it was set in the Regency era. That is my favourite type of period drama, very Jane Austen, very Pride and Prejudice. It wasn't what I expected going into it, that's for sure. I enjoyed part 1, I will say that. But I feel like with Bridgerton, it's always beautiful, it's always fun and whimsical and a nice little escape. But with each season, not each episode, each season, it feels like it changes a little bit. I don't know if the directors, writers or showrunners are changing with each season, but while it fits into that world, it always feels a bit different. And in the past 2 seasons, the main love story has been the focus. That's what we're rooting for. And then there's been the little subplots as well, which have been fun to watch. But with this one, with Colin and Penelope, it feels like their love story is sharing the same amount of time with all the other plots. And it feels like it's stretching itself a little thin. And while what we're here for is the main love story, I feel like that's already, I mean, no spoilers, but I feel like that's already done. And I don't know, it's fun, I enjoy it, but I don't know if it's as strong as the other ones. But I will be watching part 2, which I think is coming out in June, so hopefully that will be a satisfying conclusion. Okay, so short and sweet for TV. Like I said, I don't tend to watch too many of them, but I have watched more this month. But moving on to movies, let's start off with non-horror. And there are only 4 non-horror movies to cover, and then we will get to horror. So the first non-horror film that I watched was a rewatch of Girl Interrupted from 1999. Set in the changing world of the late 1960s, Susanna's prescribed short rest from a psychiatrist she had met only once becomes a strange, unknown journey into Alice's Wonderland, where she struggles with the thin line between normal and crazy. Susanna soon realises how hard it is to get out once she has been committed, and she ultimately has to choose between the world of people who belong inside or the difficult world of reality outside. Girl Interrupted is a film that I was obsessed with as a teenager. I rewatched this so many times, but I haven't watched it in a really, really long time, so it was so fun revisiting it. If you saw my haul update, you'll see that I bought it on physical media as I'd got rid of it from my collection for some reason, so I replaced it, and it was so fun to revisit it. The cast in this is unbelievable. You've got Winona Ryder, you've got Angelina Jolie, you've got Elizabeth Moss, you've got Clea Duvall, you've got Brittany Murphy, and it's such a funny film to watch because it is funny and it is heartwarming and there are fun moments, but it's also not an easy watch. This is really heavy material and there are some genuinely disturbing moments, genuinely upsetting moments, and by the end of it, I was just bawling my eyes out. I said in my Letterboxd review, I think I described it as haunting but also self-indulgent because that's how it feels. It feels like you go on this journey with Susanna where, you know, she's very lost and she's very sad, and then she gets to this place and she sees it with rose-tinted glasses. It's almost kind of glamorized, and you go on that journey with her, but then she has this very harsh dose of reality, and we are there with her feeling every moment of that. And it does feel quite self-indulgent as a film, but it's such a wonderful one and I would highly recommend it. I gave Girl Interrupted 4.5 stars out of 5 and a heart. Okay, the next non-horror film that I watched was Trading Places from 1983. A snobbish investor and a wily street con artist find their positions reversed as part of a bet by 2 callous millionaires. So Trading Places stars Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy and Jamie Lee Curtis, who I have to say is such a highlight of this film. God damn, does she look good in this movie. But yeah, so Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, they play these two characters. It's a little bit like Prince and Pauper, where you have someone from a very poor background, someone very privileged, and their roles switch, and the film follows how they deal with that. It is directed by John Landis, who I have really come to like and admire because of the stuff that he's made, because he's the director of my beloved Blues Brothers. He also did An American Werewolf in London, an amazing horror movie, and he also did the music video for Michael Jackson's Thriller. I kid you not. I mean, this guy creates some remarkable stuff. Now, Trading Places, not as strong as those other three, I will admit, but it's a good time. I had a fun time with it. But, and this is a big but, this is a film from 1983, and there are some words and dialogue used in this, and one choice of something that they do to Dan Aykroyd, and watching it in 2024, you're sort of like, what? So if you do want to watch it, which I would say give it a go, like, it's a good 80s comedy and I would recommend it, but just beware that there are some dated lines of dialogue in this movie. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't recommend it. I would. I had fun with this one. I gave Trading Places 3.5 stars out of 5 and a heart. So I am soon, in the imminent future, going to be guesting on an episode of one of my subscriber/Patreon's YouTube channels, and we're doing a movie draft from the 2010s, and I'm so excited to be part of it. I'm so excited to do it, but it was a little bit like Panic Stations, because I tend to prefer older films, and I was like, can we not just go back in time and have me on the 1970s one or the 1980s one? But I then did a bit of research looking into 2010s, and oh my god, that decade was, it just, so many good films. I can't even put it into words. So many good films, but so many good films that I've not seen, including the next one, which is Mad Max Fury Road from 2015. I watched this because you will see a lot of films from the 2010s in this monthly recap, because I've been quickly trying to catch up and pick films for this draft. But Mad Max Fury Road. Why has it taken me so long to watch this film? My action-loving heart ate this up like a little bitch. I don't know if you know this about me, but I do also love the action subgenre or the action genre. I love the adrenaline, I love the car chases, I love the choreographed fight scenes, and Mad Max is one of the most fun action films that I've seen in a long time. I loved everything about this. I adored this film. The cast was really strong. Tom Hardy, brilliant in pretty much everything that he does. Nicholas Hoult was a highlight for me in this. His character's arc was one of my favourites. That was really cool. Then there's also Charlize Theron and the wives. Oh, what a bunch of babes. You have got Riley Keough, you've got Zoe Kravitz, you've got Rosie Huntington. I can't remember all the others, but so good. And honestly, the premise of it is really interesting. If you said, oh, watch this film, because it's basically just following people driving a bunch of cars in a straight line for about 2 hours long, you'd think, no, you are right, actually. But it is incredible. The design of these cars is so fun, so cool. I love that in one of the convoys, they have a vehicle dedicated to strap a guy to it to constantly play electric guitar. They take their road trips so seriously that they have a vehicle for a diegetic soundtrack, and I love it. I love that the wives, like Charlize Theron, you know, they're babes. They're proper beautiful women, and they're in these sexy clothes and things like that, but they're badass. They're smart, they're strong, they're ingenuitive, they're loyal, and I think that it's such a really strong portrayal of female characters in an action film. And I love Tom Hardy's portrayal as well. He gives so much by doing so little. He's one of the most controlled actors I've ever seen, but just portrays so much through that. Fury Road, 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, then the next non-horror film that I watched was I, Tonya from 2017. Competitive ice skater Tonya Harding rises amongst the ranks at the US Figure Skating Championships, but her future in the sport is thrown into doubt when her ex-husband intervenes. Now, I think I, Tonya back in the day suffered a little bit like Jennifer's Body did, in that they marketed this film in the completely wrong way. From the trailers and the marketing, you would think that this was just a silly, tongue-in-cheek black comedy film, and it is so much more than that. There is humour to it, it's well written, that there are funny parts, but there's also a lot of drama, there's a lot of heavy subject matter with the character of Tonya being abused by multiple people in her life, from her mother to the police force to her husband, and I was really taken by surprise by how serious and sort of heartbreaking this could be at times. What I enjoyed about it is it's talking about the real life event between Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan, where Nancy Kerrigan was attacked, and it was believed that Tonya Harding was behind it. Now, still to this day, we don't really know the truth because there are conflicting stories that change, and different things said from different sides. But in the film, it's portraying that Tonya's husband had set it up to have a threat given to Nancy. It got out of his control where she was attacked, and then Tonya and he got the blame, but he was kind of behind it. But they still set it up in the film that they have people saying conflicting things. They have Tonya saying her truth, but is also caught out in a lie. So I really liked the approach that while they had her involved, while they spoke to her, while they're trying to give an honest portrayal of what happened, they are never glamorizing Tonya. They may be saying that she wasn't involved in the attack, but they never say that she's an innocent angel. They portray her in all her warts, all her good parts, all her complexities, because this is a real life person who's complex. There is nobody who is all good and all bad. So I was really pleased that while they made you feel for Tonya, they also showed you that, you know, she makes bad choices. She treats people badly as well, but she is also a victim of continuous abuse through her life, through her mother, through the police force. I mean, in this film, she's pulled over by a police officer, and she's left. He just lets her go off with her abuser. And then the FBI shows her abuser the transcript that she said about him. It's really hard to see her in this perpetual cycle of abuse from people, but it is also good to show her as being very human and flawed. It was a good time. It was not perfect for me. I know a lot of people have given this 5 stars. It wasn't perfect for me, but it was very, very strong. So I give I, Tonya 4.5 stars out of 5. Okay, the next and final non-horror film that I watched was Parasite from 2019. Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. So I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because, like I said in my Letterboxd review, why have I waited 5 years to watch this masterpiece of a movie? But also there's very little that I can say on this film that probably hasn't already been said, and said in a much more educated way and a much more eloquent way. But this film is a masterpiece. It is remarkable. It's one of the most incredible films I've watched in a long time, from everything from the direction, the cinematography, the script, the dialogue, the visuals, just everything about it was so good. And again, like other films on this list, I tend to gravitate to films that are not just one thing. I like a mixture, and with Parasite you have that. In the beginning it is so funny, then it quickly turns into a psychological thriller, and it really hits the ground running. I mean, how the Kim family sort of infiltrate their way into the Park's lives is really interesting. There's some little moments that reminded me of Ocean's 11, you know, where they're sort of saying their plan and then you're seeing the visuals as they're doing a bit of research. It's like a montage of preparation. Really liked that. Then the psychological thriller goes really kind of hard, and then at the end, it's so heartbreaking. There is a scene in this film which I'm guessing most of you have seen it, but there's a scene where there's a flood of the poorer areas, like where the Kim family live, and it's not just rain, but it's sewage as well, and all their homes have been flooded and they're, you know, affected. They're put into this hall, so they have somewhere to live. It's like a, you know, like a relief center. And then you see that, but then it cuts to a scene of the Park mum making a ludicrously extravagant birthday party for her son, and she has these lines of dialogue like, oh, thank goodness for the rain, it has just washed everything out and everything feels so fresh and clean now. And just that contrast between the two scenarios, between the two lives, it is one of the greatest pieces of film that I have seen in a long time. Really, really stuck with me. And then just the ending as well. I mean, there's so much that this film comments on, and so this is a film that I want to watch again and again, because I feel like there's so many bits that I've missed. There's so much that it is commenting on, and does so in such a wonderful, healthy, organic way. Nothing is shoved in your face or rammed down your throat. I think you can watch this just on surface level, and then you can look for all the other little bits as well. A beautiful film to look at. I mean, the use of the Park's house, the use of the light, it's just, I cannot believe it's taken me so long to watch this. I loved it. So I give Parasite 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, let's get into the horror now, finally. Okay, so the first horror film that I watched was Dracula from 1958. This is a Hammer horror starring Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. And I really, really loved this. I watched this to continue my research for Dracula's episode, which has taken longer than I thought, to be honest with you, but I'm still getting there. So I watched this for that. Now, I went into this so excited to see Christopher Lee as Dracula, and to be honest with you, this Dracula film needed more Dracula. He's barely in it, but when he is, he just fills the screen. He holds your attention in every single scene. And I think that's probably because he's just such a tall mass of a man, isn't he? And I think that he's a wonderful choice for this charismatic and slightly dangerous and mysterious character. Peter Cushing was also brilliant as Van Helsing. I did enjoy it. I didn't love it as much as I hoped I would. But yeah, I might check out more in the Hammer Horror Dracula series. I don't know. But I gave Dracula 4 out of 5 stars and a heart. Then on the other end of the scale, now some people might not agree with me on this, because I've seen on Instagram and Letterboxd in the horror community that there is actually a lot of love for this next film, and that is Van Helsing from 2004, starring Kate Beckinsale, Hugh Jackman, I can't remember who else is in it, but Hugh Jackman is the titular Helsing, and it's really cool because you do get werewolves in it, you get Dracula in it, you also get Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's a really cool scene in Paris. I did like that. In fact, the whole opening of the film, the black and white setting, because you also have Victor Frankenstein creating his monster, then you had the monster going up to the windmill, and the like the group of people with their torches and pitchforks. That was really cool. Then the scene in Paris and Notre Dame with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, loved that. Then it just kind of, for me, I did not love this. And this is a rewatch. I've seen this before and I enjoyed it more back in the day than I did this time. I did not love this. I was kind of bored. And that seems ridiculous because there was so much going on and it was so action-packed and, you know, kind of like classic Universal monsters. You would think that this would be absolutely made for me, but no. I gave Van Helsing 2.5 stars out of 5, and I stand by it. Okay, then we started having some really good weather in the UK, and whenever it starts to get sunny, I always really crave water-based horror films. So the next 3 are all water-based. Now the first one is John Carpenter's The Fog, and I love revisiting this film. This is one of my favourite John Carpenter films. The Fog is from 1980 and follows strange things occurring in a tiny California coastal town as they prepare to celebrate their centenary. But the town is haunted and hunted by a mysterious ghost ship and its inhabitants, returned for revenge. Great cast: Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh, You've got Tom Atkins. I think my review of this film said everything. I mean, you have Tom Atkins who meets Jamie Lee Curtis and within an hour has met her, given her a lift, taken her home, slept with her, and is now perusing through her portfolio of art. All within an hour. If I haven't said it before, she's a lucky, lucky lady. Anyway, I have a good time with The Fog. I know not everybody loves it, but I like it. I think that the cast is good. I like the idea of the story. It is far superior to the ridiculous The Fog remake, but I gave The Fog 3.5 stars out of 5 and a heart. Okay, then I watched Lake Placid from 1999. I think this was a rewatch, and I also did this for a Patreon commentary track. And you know what? This is now the third time I've seen this film. First time I watched Lake Placid was at a friend's sleepover. There was 3 of us, and we were watching Lake Placid, and the opening of it scared me so much. It was so gross to me back then that I pretended I was ill so that they would ring my parents and I could go home. Instead of just saying, this is too scary for me, can we pick a different film? Instead of just hiding behind a pillow, I faked being ill to get out of watching the film. Anyway, then I rewatched it a couple of years ago, enjoyed it, it was fine. Then I rewatched it this month, and you know what? I actually really enjoyed this film. It's a good water-based one because of the sun. You can sort of feel it's humid, it's sticky, you can really feel the warmth within the film. And there's so much to laugh at. This is a good one to watch as like the burn unit, where you can just watch it and pull it apart and just have a laugh at the silly dialogue. I mean, one of the best lines in this film is, "You have such big, wonderful boobs." I mean, that tells you everything, doesn't it? But what watching films for my commentary track does is really makes me look at it in such an analytical way, different to when I analyse them for episodes on this channel. And I really notice things about this film, that there are incredibly set up scenarios, really well filmed moments, and moments of genuine tension, like when Hector is in the water. He's got out of the helicopter that's landed on the water. He turns around and the animatronic crocodile, done by Stan Winston, by the way, Jurassic Park Stan Winston, and it's just him in the water with the crocodile. It is so cool. Yeah, I just saw that there's actually well-made things in this film, and the ridiculousness of the dialogue, unfortunately, often takes away from that. I think if someone watched it and didn't rewatch it and was just horrified by the dialogue and the sniping characters at each other and the whole rural versus city and, you know, police versus fish and wildlife, it's just everyone's against each other, that I just think they would be put off. And I actually really liked this film this time. I gave Lake Placid 3 out of 5 stars and a heart. Then, because I wanted water-based horror movies, I watched the obvious, the ultimate, the greatest horror water-based film of all time, and that is Jaws from 1975, also known as one of my favourite films of all time. I did actually watch this film twice this month. No, I lie, 3 times this month. I watched the whole thing. And then I loved it so much I watched it again in the background while I was editing. And then I think the following week I was doing housework or something and I just had it on my phone or tablet in the background. So I kind of watched it 3 times. But the colour palette, the visuals, the feeling of it is just everything to me. It is one of the greatest films made of all time. And the scene in the film where Brody knows there's a shark and he's wanted to close the beaches and the mayor has said, nope, we're keeping it open. That scene where Brody's really tense and he's watching people frolic in the water and he's got someone talking to him but he's still trying to pay attention. It is one of the greatest scenes in cinema I've ever seen. And I really, really want to do an episode that is just a study and a deep dive of that scene alone, of every technique used in it, what every shot means, every bit of the performance, because I could watch it over and over again. It's so good. If you would like to see that, let me know if that's something, like pick a particular scene from a film and let's talk about that, like the ending of Saw or the crash, the accident in I Know What You Did Last Summer, or the beach scene from Jaws. That's what I'm thinking anyway, so let me know. But Jaws, love it. I I love it. So I obviously gave Jaws 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, then I watched a new horror release, and that was the French horror Infested, which is currently streaming on Shudder. Residents of a rundown French apartment building battle against an army of deadly, rapidly reproducing spiders. So I have already done a full review of this for my Patreon, so I'll only keep it short and sweet here, but this was my first experience or first entry into French horror. I haven't watched any other French horror films because I've heard a lot of them are quite extreme, and that's not really my taste. But I was interested with this one, really glad I watched it. It was so well made, so well shot, and for the most part well acted. It wasn't my favourite one of this year, it wasn't my favourite of this month, but I had a good time with it. What I really appreciated about it is that it takes the time to establish the story. It takes time to establish the characters and get you to know them and get you to care about them before the spider action really happens. When the spider action does happen, it really hits the ground running and never lets up. And it really goes places with the spiders. And what I liked about it is there is a variety of size in spider, there is a variety in interaction with the spider, there is a variety of kills from the spider. As the spiders reproduce, they also grow, and so you have different scenarios where, say for example, someone might be filled with spiders, someone might be bitten by little ones, someone might be killed and attacked by giant spiders. And so it keeps it really interesting, and the death scenes are never boring, and a lot of them are actually quite unpleasant. If you're not a fan of spiders, if you really struggle with them, this is not a film for you. I'm okay with spiders until they get really big, and I was so uncomfortable and itchy watching this. I felt so itchy watching the film, and I felt itchy recording my review of it, and then I felt itchy editing my review of it. It's so effective in that way. The best moment of the film, in my opinion, is a scenario where they're trying to walk through a corridor that has a light on a timer, and the corridor is filled with spiders and cobwebs. It is so tense and so well structured. It had me on edge for so long, and it actually leads to the saddest, I won't say who or what, but it leads to the saddest, most tragic death in the film. And they made some really great choices with that. With instead of showing the death, they show you the reactions of the people listening to it, and it just makes it so much more haunting and heartbreaking. Not a perfect film, but it was a good time, and I gave Infested 3.5 stars out of 5. Okay, then another rewatch with Last Night in Soho from 2021. This was another one I did for a commentary track. This time I had my mini-me guest comment on it. It's their favourite film, and so we watched that together, did a commentary track. Always a pleasure to revisit. I love Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. I love Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith. I always love this film because I always feel a little bit like the two characters. I always feel a little bit sort of starstruck by the past and by vintage things. And I think what Edgar Wright does in the film is he shows you the follies and the dangers of looking at things with nostalgia, with rose-tinted glasses, and not seeing the reality of things. And so I really love that you go on the same journey as Eloise. So you go on the same journey as Eloise, where you see things through these rose-tinted glasses. You fall in love with Sandy and Jack just like she does. And then you begin to discover things are not what they seem. So, you know, there's also that thing of, is that real? Is that not? You are seeing it from Eloise's point of view. So you know as much as she does, you see what she sees. So I gave Last Night in Soho 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, next we have the newly released The Strangers, Chapter 1. I have actually done a full review on this, so if you want to know my more in-depth thoughts, then go check out that. But for the most part, I will just say that this is a film that, for the majority of people who seem to watch this, they seem to really hate this film. There's a lot of 1-star reviews, a lot of half-star reviews, and even people who are big fans of the franchise of The Strangers have been disappointed with it. My opinion on it was a little bit different to that. I neither loved nor hated this film. It is not the worst one that I have seen this year, but it just was fine. It was okay. There were things that were technically well done and things that were technically not well done. And so it was just interesting having a differing opinion. I am not the opposite of everybody else. I'm more just in the middle. So there were lots of comments on my review of The Strangers. But you know what? I have to say, I was both really surprised and really impressed with the comment section, because for the most part, people were really mature about it. In fact, one of my favourite comments was one that said that they completely disagreed with everything I'd said, but they appreciated that my opinion seemed real and that they would rather listen to a real opinion they disagree with than agree with a fake opinion of someone just following along with what everybody else thinks. So I really appreciated that, because I like that we can have a discussion about horror films on this channel, in this What the Horror community, but do it in a safe way where we can appreciate we're going to disagree on things. It doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong, and it doesn't mean we have to tear the other person down because of it. I like that you say you disagree with me, but say it in a constructive way. So I was really appreciative for the most part of the comment section of that review. So that was nice. But I gave The Strangers 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, next up was a rewatch of Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, The Shining from 1980. This one, I am very excited to announce, is one I actually rewatched with my friend Zach. You will know him as Professor Zizi from Zizi's World, because he is actually, well, he did guest doing a commentary track for me for my Patreon page. So this week, I believe it might already be out at this point. If it's not this week, it will be next week. I will be dropping a commentary track over on my Patreon page with Zach guesting, and it's so exciting to be talking about The Shining, because not only is it his favourite horror film, but it is his favourite film of all time. So it was so fun to watch that with him and hear all the knowledge and things that he has on it, all the things that, you know, are sort of hidden in the background. We talk theories, conspiracy theories, opinions, behind the scenes stuff. So I'm really, really excited about that one. So that's a nice little treat for my patrons. If you do want to become a patron, there is a link to it in the description box below, and that has all the information of what you get at what tier. I gave The Shining 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, then was another film from 2010s, and that was Saint Maud. This is a British A24 film that came out a few years ago, 2019. Again, one that I haven't visited, but one I wanted to watch purely because Jennifer Ale, is she called? Because she played Elizabeth Bennet in my favourite production of Pride and Prejudice, so I was dying to watch this because of her. This is a film that would be right up my street. You know, there's a lot of the religious horror and that kind of thing. I really do gravitate towards those, and this was such an incredible religious horror film because it was unlike one I've ever seen before. It was not about possession or the Catholic Church. It was just one person's struggle with her newfound faith, also mixed in with her struggle with her mental health. And that to me is where the true horror lies in Saint Maud. It is not in the seemingly supernatural paranormal stuff that is happening. It is all in Saint Maud's mental health, because this is a character who is broken, who is desperately seeking company and affection and meaning in life and redemption. She's worked at a profession that has been very hard on her emotionally and on her mental health, and she's just struggling in the world, and it is a really bleak portrayal of this character's life. And as we only ever see the film from Maud's point of view, we see things the way she does, and so we're never fully sure if what we're seeing is real, if it is really happening. And that to me is where the true discomfort and true horror comes from. The ending is incredible, because any question that you had, any doubt that you had about whether this is real or not, or what has actually happened to Maud, is all answered in the last few split seconds of the film. I gave Saint Maud 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, now the next film some of you may not consider horror, but it's in the title, and that is Little Shop of Horrors from 1986. This is a film I've been wanting to watch for years, like Blues Brothers. I knew the soundtrack and I'd seen clips of it, but I'd never watched it all the way through, and I'm just kind of catching up on particular films from the 1980s recently, and this was one that I was dying to include in that catch-up, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And it's so sad to me. It's so sad that so many people will miss out on this film just because it's a musical. Not many people like musicals. I don't mind them. Music is as important to me as film. And a film that combines music with the film is just, it's like catnip. It's just heaven for me. That doesn't mean I like every musical and every film that has music in it, but done well, I really love it. This is the most musical I've seen in a while. You can really picture this as a stage production. But the soundtrack is great, especially when you have a trio of sort of the like narrators, but these beautiful singers that are modelled on the muses from Hercules and the Renettes and the Supremes. You also have the plant, Audrey 2, is voiced by Levi Stubbs from the Four Tops. So that's just wonderful. The cast as well is just what I love in an 80s film. There is this particular little group of people who are all kind of SNL origins, but there's like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Jim Belushi, James Belushi, Steve Martin, Martin Short, John Candy, Rick Moranis. All these people, they all kind of appear in each other's films and crossover. And so in this one you had Rick Moranis, you had John Candy, you had Steve Martin, you had James Belushi. It was so fun. You even have a cameo from Bill Murray, and his bit in the film is one of my favourite parts. So Steve Martin plays this sadist dentist who loves inflicting pain, but Bill Murray turns up as a patient who loves having pain inflicted on him. And so you've got one trying to cause pain and one who's like, yeah, baby, give me more. It's like proper getting off in the dentist chair. It's just one of the best parts. It's fun, it's daft, it's whimsical and wacky, and I just loved it so much. I gave Little Shop of Horrors 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, then it was a first time watch of The Witch, or The Witch, from 2015, Anya Taylor-Joy's first film. This is yet another film that has been on my watch list for years. I bought the physical copy of it back in 2021, I think. I got it because I was going to do an episode on here about the true story of the Salem witch trials. And so I was going to cover some witchy films and then like the true story, but I never got around to watching it. And here we are, 3 years later, I have finally got around to watching it. It's another A24 film, so I know that some people are a bit hit and miss with it. I guess it's one of those that would be classed as elevated horror. Some people think it's quite pretentious and quite stuck up and not for everybody. And I can certainly see that, because while I really respect Robert Eggers as a creator, I love what he does. I love how he experiments and explores his medium. Some people don't love the historical accuracy and the slow paced, with this one especially, it's not the most accessible horror film. It is incredibly dark because he only used daylight and candlelight, and it's incredibly quiet at times. They're using a lot of authentic dialogue from the time period. So not the most accessible, but I think if you can get to the point where you can really be immersed in it, like make it dark, turn the volume up, don't be looking on your phone, there's so much enjoyment to be had with it. Although, like, it's not a fun film, but it feels like an experience watching it, unlike a lot of other films, I would say. There were a couple of moments I didn't love, like there's a whole thing with a baby, and then there's some like animal bits, and I didn't like that. But, for the sake of just going like that, it is well worth watching. So I gave The Witch 4.5 stars out of 5 and a star. Okay, then another rewatch for me of The World's End, which is the third and final installment in Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy. 5 friends who reunite in an attempt to top their epic pub crawl from 20 years earlier unwittingly become humankind's only hope for survival. So this was released in 2013 and was written and directed by Edgar Wright and stars Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as they star in all of the Cornetto trilogy. This one is often considered to be the least popular and the least well-made film in the trilogy. And in my Letterboxd review, I said that while it's not as fun or polished as Hot Fuzz or as smart as Shaun of the Dead, I think this is the one with the most heart. I know this is Simon Pegg's favourite character, Gary King, because he's so tortured and so sad and so broken. He's more interesting than Sean and Nicholas Angel. And honestly, I think out of the 3 trilogies, this is where you get the most incredible performance from both Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. There is a scene between them, the two of them, towards the end of the film, almost had me in tears. It might be the best performance by Nick Frost I've seen in a film. The ending of it does drop off a little bit for me. I think the second act is the best part, the first is good, and the third part is where it loses it a little bit. I get it's fun, but like the message of the film is a little bit in your face, and I don't think it applies to everybody. It applies really well for the characters within the film, and it's kind of one of those messages where you want to get behind it and be like, yeah. But then you realise that isn't really applicable to everyone in the human race, and so not everyone's going to feel motivated by that ending. So that does drop off. It doesn't spoil it for me. I still think this is a strong entry. Although it is still my third least favourite of the franchise, of the trilogy. Hot Fuzz is still my favourite. I gave The World End 4 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, final film, and what a film to end on. This film has definitely become one of my favourite horror films, and I will certainly be rewatching this. And I honestly thought that Parasite would be the greatest Korean film that I had watched recently, but no. Then I watched Train to Busan, and I cannot believe it's again taken me so long to watch this film. I am so grateful that I've caught up or had a reason to catch up on all these 2010 films, because what a decade. What a decade. So Train to Busan was released in 2016. It is a zombie film, and again, not everybody loves a zombie film. I know, particularly after The Walking Dead, a lot of people are burnt out on the zombie subgenre, or it has never been one of their favourites. For me, I oddly really like the zombie subgenre, and I think it's because, and I said it before, one of my biggest fears is being eaten alive. It's why I love creature features, because that's what's scary to me. Being eaten by a shark or a crocodile or a dinosaur or a zombie, being eaten alive is one of my biggest fears. And so it's like, you know, when you see something horrific and you can't look away from it, it's something that scares me, but I want to look. I want to be close to it, but in a safe way. And I also think, and this is why I did originally love The Walking Dead, the first 6 seasons of that are some of the best TV that has been made in a while. And that is because a post-apocalyptic world, a world where the government and money and laws all go out the window, is a wonderful canvas for you to explore the idea of human nature, good and bad. And like Walking Dead's moniker was it like fight the dead but fear the living, or something like that. And so it's this opportunity for people to become really good or really bad. You see the best of humanity and the worst of humanity. And so I really like that you have that to play around with. And there are a lot of zombie films that have a lot of commentary in them. Think about Night of the Living Dead. It took me a minute to get into Train to Busan as they were setting things up, but then I just really, really loved it. I loved some of the characters in it, and the lead, like the main two, the father and the daughter, that was such an incredible dynamic. These two people who love each other but are so different in personalities and so different in character, and the journey that the father goes on as he sees other characters that are meant to be a mirror image of him and how he used to be. He learns a lot through this. Is so wonderful, and you just have these different dynamics, like you've got a pregnant woman, you've got a kid, you've got older people, you've got teenagers. You have an example of the whole of society, and I think you do care for these characters, whether they survive or not. I certainly did. There were moments where I was devastated. There were moments where I was so angry because there was one particular character that I despised and I wanted them to get their comeuppance. But even when they did, and I'm not saying who it is, but even when they did, this incredible film, even when they got their comeuppance, they became the most human you'd seen in the film. Even I kind of felt bad for. So it just shows how just how good this film is. And there were moments that were so tense. It was so quiet and slow paced and so full of tension. I felt like I couldn't breathe or make a sound. And then there were others that were so adrenaline fueled and action packed, and it just felt so kick ass. And I loved everything about this film, and I cannot believe as I have said for many films on this catch-up, that it has taken me so long. So I gave Train to Busan 5 out of 5 stars and a heart. Okay, so that was my monthly recap of May. If you've seen these episodes before, you will know that I like to pick out a favourite of the month, usually one film that I would recommend above the others, usually a 5-star or a personal favourite of my own. Last month, I think I picked out about 4 or 5. This month is going to be similar. There is going to be more than one recommendation. Okay, so my pick of the month for the month of May is going to be Jaws, Parasite and Train to Busan. So there you have it, guys, my monthly recap of the month of May. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments below which of the ones that I have seen this month are your favourites. Are there any that you haven't seen that you now want to check out? Let me know your personal favourites of May. I love to have recommendations. If you're new here and found me through this episode, then please do hit that like button if you enjoyed the episode, and hit the subscribe button to join the What the Horror family. And if you would like to join this list of names here, my wonderful Patreon members, then there is a link to the Patreon page down in the description box below. Like I said, this is an exciting month or a couple of weeks coming up for my patrons, as I have my commentary track with CZ's World, so keep an eye out for that one. I will announce when I release that one. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.